Shut up. Shut up. Don't try to claim that you're better than me. Yes, you did. Your actions stated it. Hold on, I can barely hear you guys over the background music right now. There we go. Okay. Yes. Let me turn you up just a little bit. I'm going to turn you up anyway when we go live, but Alex, go ahead and speak.
Hey, how do I sound? Do you hear me okay?
Good, my deaf ears hear you. I mean, my good ears. My good ears hear you.
Yes, very good or something.
Yes, they're good. They're not old. I'm not an old fart. That's not a thing. Rising Sun, is this your first time on the official podcast?
Yes, it's been like 29 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I'm like, well, he did Why We Geek, but yeah, we never got around to doing that. I think it's because Sea Tactics.
Like 3 times?
Yeah, because we had to cancel a couple of times, so this will be an interesting one for people to get to know you.
Yeah, it seems like every time you message me about a podcast, I'm traveling or coming back from somewhere.
And I remember at least one of them I had, I can't remember if it was work or illness. I can't remember which, but, or it actually, it could have been family stuff too.
Yeah, like one time I was like back in April, I was like traveling around seeing a lot of friends. Yeah, I was coming back home that day and you canceled the podcast. Like, okay, good, I don't have to rush.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. Now it's coming back. All right, this is going to be fun then. Can I actually... No, it won't let me do that. So, yeah, the only thing I have tonight is the discussion that we're going to get into. So we're going to pound into that. I was trying to track down the article that the listener had suggested for me to be able to put that up and let you guys read it, but I clicked on it and the link doesn't work anymore. And so at that point, I'll kind of summarize it, but this is basically something that a lot of people have been asking at the start of 2022 as to how like streaming platforms are going to be affected now that we've had a couple of years for them to adjust and we don't have chaos in their wake. So it'll be a fun one. I'm not expecting it to go past 2 hours, but if it does, then obviously I'll ask, you both if you can continue going on. But right now, since it is a roundtable, I'm not thinking that it's going to go 2 hours. So don't be too worried about that. But if you need to take off, Rising Sun, just let me know. And
I feel like I should be good. Like, I don't have anything else I have to do tonight unless like something weird happens.
Okay. Yeah, like don't try to plug in a light a traffic light and lose half of your electricity.
That's only happened once.
That's only happened once. But we want to make sure it doesn't happen again. All right.
Penalties for making stuff up.
Actually, no, I think I've told you this story, didn't I?
No, you never told me this. I never heard.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. Cuz when Rising Sun would stream, like in his room with his camera, he has like a traffic light in there. And so I started calling it.
Streams?
What was that?
I'm saying, asking Shadow, doesn't he watch my streams?
Probably not. Are you on Twitch or YouTube?
On Twitch.
He doesn't watch. I do both.
That bastard.
But yeah, I have a traffic light behind me.
So I started calling it Light Chan, and then he's like, "Hey, we could try and turn it on." And then he turned it on, and everything just went dead. And I get a text from him like 10 minutes later, going like half the power in my house is out.
Yeah, because you were doing like you were streaming that night, and like I was.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were just doing a conversation night, and all of a sudden I lost Rising Sun. We got him back on his phone, and then eventually he got his power back. But
yeah, so like I was trying to find with Howard while talking to you on my phone for your stream.
yeah, so that was fun. Trying to discuss things while trying to restore power in your house.
Yeah, like what do I do in that circumstance? Like, do I like reset the Did it break her? Do I call someone?
All I know is what I did, which was I ran with it. So
And then I stream.
I did the time honored test of the fuck it adjustment, and I just went fuck it, and we ran with it.
Yep, that's sometimes what you have to do.
Kind of like with the Taco Bell dating sim.
Exactly. I also have a taco on top of my traffic light.
There you go. That's the way to do it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get now. The other thing I should probably warn about is we're gonna be experimenting a little bit tonight. I have officially had it with Streamlabs OBS, and so now we're just straight up on OBS. So at that point, I think it'll still work, and if it doesn't, then I will obviously apologize endlessly for that, because again, it's Rising Sun's first time. Don't worry, we'll be gentle.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
Well, you say that, and then the internet gets mad that I didn't sacrifice enough leper gnomes. That's what could happen. Okay, so let me go ahead and see if I can get at least this started. So, let's see. Greetings, everyone. Give me a quick second, because you guys will not be able to hear our guests tonight because of how low I have the audio. Let me go ahead and fix that for you guys. Okay, go ahead and talk, guys.
Hey, how do we sound?
Good morning.
All right, cool. It's about where I want it to be. So at that point, we still have a couple of minutes for people to gather in here, but welcome to the pre-show of the podcast. I know that some people are going to be disappointed that we're not talking about the Nintendo Direct, but well, we're going to keep that for the end of the month because it only seems appropriate to do that. So that Brenton, myself, and Alex, and maybe somebody else can properly dissect it and be able to show. It was actually a pretty exciting Nintendo Direct, I gotta say. That's me personally. Your guest tonight sounds really smart and cool. Well, thank you, Rising Sun. I hope he is.
Yeah, I mean, Shadow is pretty smart.
He is pretty smart. He is, in fact, pretty smart. Although, I'm wondering why he picked a me character this time instead of an anime character for his avatar.
A me character?
It looks... The way that the lighting is in my room, it literally looks like a me avatar.
It's not a me avatar.
Okay.
It is a game avatar, but it's not a me.
Okay, yeah, but it just looks so close to a me for me, so it's just like... instantly in my head, I have the me creation song in my head. That's where I'm at, everybody. Just really quick, did either of you guys have any announcements that were made in that Nintendo Direct that you were excited for?
One that I was Earthbound, just because it's been around a long time, but I've never had a chance to be able to play it, so I'm going to give it a try at some point.
Oh, so you haven't played Earthbound?
Right, I never have.
So you got 2 games, technically.
Yeah, so I'll play those at some point.
Yeah, because I think you got Mother 1 and Mother 2.
Yep.
I do kind of feel bad for Mother fans, because for as many people that have been screaming for Mother 3 to make it to some kind of console, and they just haven't done it, I do feel kind of bad for that, but maybe the fact they're bringing Mother 1 and 2, that pushes things along.
Yeah, because maybe they haven't had time to redo 3 yet, so they do these 2 for now, get people excited, then release 3.
I just like the joke that was being made on Twitter, just and now they're going to unveil Mother 4, motherfucker. And they're just you play a young motherfucker as he journeys out into the cities to be able to rescue everybody from, I can't remember what it was, the fuckheads or something like that. But it was just Mother 4, motherfucker. What about you, Alex?
No, nothing for me.
Nothing? Really?
No.
Why not?
There's just nothing interesting that came out of the Direct.
I will tell you one thing that you and I will have to tackle, and that is the newly announced Xenoblade 3. Because...
I haven't even played 1 or 2.
Well, here's the thing: is that it's funny because last summer when we went on vacation, I started Xenoblade One
Mhm.
for the first time, and so you got to see a little bit of that, and I have been hammering them ever since. I am so I've played the full games of Xenoblade 1 and 2. I got like a quarter into one's DLC, and I haven't touched the Xenoblade 2 DLC. So at that point, like I saw the Xenoblade 3 announcement, and I'm like, holy shit, this is looking really good. So maybe at some point we're gonna have to take on Xenoblade, and I'll have to show you it because you're not gonna believe that I say this, but um, Xenoblade 2 is the closest thing to a Xenogears sequel I will ever get.
Xenogears is the show or the game you keep saying I should play, isn't it?
It is, yes, yes. It's
Okay.
when I
Or you
make a
could watch
top
a
10 list
long,
of
long
all time
let's play of
games,
it.
Xenogears will be on that list. I'm just not
Okay.
sure where. Sorry, Alex. What?
I was just saying, Rising could play it, or you could watch our very long let's play series of it.
Yeah, how many parts did that end up? It broke the record. I know that.
Yeah, I don't know. I
It
know it
was
was
like
our
110
longest
or something
one.
like that.
Yeah, it was pretty lengthy. It was our longest one to date.
Uh huh. And I actually have gotten people asking. So you say that you've played, you know, that I play Xenogears like every other year or something like that. Are you gonna do it on stream? And
Ah,
I've just been like, I don't know, maybe. And I've actually, you've been talking to me because you want to play it. So I basically been trying to find a proper ROM to be able to send you that will work for the best PlayStation emulator. Because that's unless you have a PS3, that's the only other way to play it. Unless you have a PlayStation and a working copy of Xenogears. I mean, I do. I don't have a PlayStation, but I have a working copy of Xenogears. You can't have it.
I turn up at Drax's house to play it then.
I'm okay with that. I even said if you ever play it, I'll gladly join commentary on it because
Yeah.
I never get tired of that game.
Yeah, I definitely want to get it set up at some point.
Mhm.
But it's like I have too many games I want to play and stream and not enough time.
Uh, oh, and Bobby, hi. How I hope you're doing well today, bud. I am okay. But it's very clear that there's a cold going around my house, so I've got kind of the Gandalf voice going on. So what I'm basically saying is that Alex can look forward to a bunch of voicemail messages in the middle of the night where I'm doing Gandalf quotes because this is the only time that I'll be able to do it.
Got it. So don't give Drax my phone number.
Yes. Yes, don't give Drake your phone number. I think I did that once, didn't I? Maybe it was Andrea's phone. I'm not sure if it was Alex's, but I actually did call somebody and go, "A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he
I don't
early."
think. No, I don't think so. I don't think he ever did that with me.
I remember us laughing our asses off in the car. I can't remember which movie it was we were reviewing, but I was pointing out, wow, I actually sound like Gandalf now.
Yep,
Like,
you should start doing that then.
yes, exactly. That's exactly what should happen. So that's one thing you can be excited for, Alex. Maybe the Mario Kart courses. So I know my daughter's excited for them, and my daughter's gonna want to watch you play them. The only thing that's a downside is that I'm gonna have to get the damn expansion pass or expansion pack to be able to get it. And now Alex is like, "Oh crap, I'm gonna have to do work on my vacation." Yeah, a little bit. You're gonna have to do the work of an uncle.
Sounds painful.
Yes, yes. I kind of wish my kids would use him more as a jungle gym, but they don't. It's kind of frustrating. Instead, they use me as a jungle gym. What the hell?
I guess you're more fun.
I guess so. I can't explain it any other way. Because I know that they like him. Um, I think at one point it was either Arya or Melody were dragging him into his room because they wanted to see what he was doing. I think he was watching anime or something. And so one of them grabbed his hand and dragged him into his room. I'm more sturdy. I thought I was made of sterner stuff. That's the other one I can do. I can finally do a Peter Cullen.
Yeah, I don't know what that one's from.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, Megatron. Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime. Now, oh, this is driving me crazy. This is driving me batty. So batty. All right, so we are at 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get this done. Really quick, Rising Sun, you're good for the full 2 hours, right? Or
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, just making sure. I can't remember if I asked that or not, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started the only way that I know how.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Time to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. Give me a quick second here. Let's see if this actually fixes it. I don't know. Oh. Hold on. I know it's here somewhere. God damn it. I already broke this freaking podcast. What the hell's wrong with me? There we go. And now it's actually working again. Welcome, everybody, to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek. But in this case, we are actually doing a Geek News Roundtable discussing a specific topic that is either chosen by you guys or chosen by one of the panel. And we analyze it, we dissect it, we discuss it. We discuss the positives, the negatives, and everything in between. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody is having an awesome evening on Friday, February 11th. And joining me tonight on our panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow content creators, and fellow awesome guys in general. Let's go ahead and introduce Alex the Shadow Blazer. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, and what's going on in your life right now?
Right now, it's mostly just working a lot and keeping
have
up
you,
with anime and playing
have you
games
officially
and-
passed inventory season?
Oh yeah.
Are you
we're-
at least
we're
able
done with
to
that.
have things mellow out?
Yeah, it's been mellow, but still always much to do at work anyway, so
All right.
the fun never stops. The fun truly never stops.
And also joining us tonight is, for the first time, he's done a couple of podcasts with me, and I've done a couple of live streams with him, but for the first time on the GNRO podcast, we welcome Rising Sun Reviews. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Today's been kind of a weird day along with the past year, but yes, I'm doing well.
Well, isn't that the last couple of years?
Yeah, life has been kind of crazy. My job is making me do numbery things, so that's fun.
Yeah. Well, my job is already kind of it's mellowed out, but now since we now have warehouses for same day delivery out here, which we didn't have before, I can't
yes.
say that it mellowed out because now everything's regular and consistent. So at that point, I mean, at least I don't have to worry about a lack of work. They'll have something for me.
Yeah, I mean, job security is good.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at that point, I can't necessarily complain. Now, like I said, usually we're talking about the week's events in Geek, but tonight, unfortunately, we are going to be doing a Geek News Roundtable. So for the people that I can already see in our live chat, welcome. We're happy to have you guys here. If you are here to discuss the Nintendo Direct, I am going to disappoint you right off the bat. We are not going to be talking that tonight. We will talk it later on this month when I'm actually able to assemble another panel. But I also want to try and do these once a month as well, where we can have an active discussion about something going on in fandom or in basically our favorite platforms and everything like that. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this topic that was suggested by a listener, I want to say just as 2022 was starting, because they recommended an article to me about the streaming platforms and what they are going to have to face come 2022. And what it was a comprehensive article basically going over the ups and downs of the last 2 years for streaming platforms and what streaming platforms are probably going to have to overcome in this year now that there are more of them. So without further ado, let's actually back some of this up a little bit and talk about, okay, how did the last 2 years affect these streaming platforms? Well, according to a lot of studies that have been done by what was the word I'm looking for? Leading pollsters on this, streaming platforms, in essence, had their best year in 2020. And by that, I mean highest subscriptions, highest payments, highest profits, everything in that regard. And for those who don't understand why, it's fairly clear, but let's actually kind of explain it. 2020 was the year when everybody got locked in, and you couldn't go and do your favorite camping trip or your favorite kayaking trip or anything like that. We were all stuck at home. Originally, it was supposed to be for 15 days to flatten the curve, but eventually, for some people, became overall 6 months for a lot of people, and in other states, it was a lot more than that. So at that point, what else are you going to do, right, Alex? I mean, if you can't leave, then you might as well just adopt all of these streaming platforms, especially for people who hadn't necessarily cut the cord. They were still using cable, but they went, well, we're going to have our kids home. We're going to have us home. Let's try out these streaming platforms that we just have neglected to do. So that's why you actually got to see a lot of those platforms raising up in popularity as well as in money because everybody was shut in. It actually worked out in that regard. Then comes 2021, where same speculators basically said that it was the greatest profits dive that streaming platforms had to endure. Why is that? People were able to get out. So in 2021, a lot of those states opened back up. People were going back to work. People were able to go and do their family vacations or step outside, and they took advantage of that wholeheartedly. Is that safe to say for both of you?
Yeah, like 2021 was more or less back to normal.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's when cons started back up, wasn't it, Rising Sun?
Yeah, because I did a con back in last August, and it was the biggest con that they'd ever had because there's so much pent-up demand.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, where a lot of people look at this as an overall dive in their overall sales, their subscriptions, and overall user base, it was kind of a natural thing. I know that a lot of people looked at that as going, oh no, it's going to be totally horrible. But in the overall look of things, it basically was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, the market balancing itself back out, and actually showing what these streaming platforms were looking forward to. But
yeah, I feel it's definitely a big drop for them, but that feels expected. World gets back to normal, streaming goes back to normal.
But not only that, you had new streaming platforms that were joining the mix and that were gaining a lot of that popularity that the ones that were very well known could actually experience. So I believe in 2020 or 2019, Disney Plus was launched. 2021, I believe, is when Paramount Plus launched. Peacock, I think, was 2020. So you already had a bunch of these markets, or this market getting bigger, because a lot of other people are now joining into it. It's not just Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, Crunchyroll, all that stuff. Now we have an even bigger market to be able to work with. And so that dares to ask the question, if the market is basically leveling off, unfortunately, in 2022, it looks like even more leveling off for these streaming platforms has happened. And there's two reasons that are mostly being accounted for in regard to that. In case people don't have these streaming platforms, you have brand spanking new programming that is happening on them. A lot of people might know the Netflix Marvel cinematic universe when that was happening, but now a lot of other platforms like Amazon Video, Hulu, Prime Video, Hulu, Crunchyroll started original animation stuff, as well as Paramount Plus started exclusive stuff for people to be able to watch. And so one of the reasons that people are accounting for the dip, especially in cases of Netflix, is what the term the market is calling it is churn. Does anybody know what churn is, or do I need to explain it?
Yeah, I feel like I do.
Okay.
I don't know it.
So for those in the audience that maybe aren't in tune, churn is basically, let's use an example here. Currently on Disney Plus, you have the Book of Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett is launching a new episode every week, and so people want to watch Book of Boba Fett, and they pay for the subscription for Disney Plus for, I think it's going to be like 8 episodes, so up to 2 months that they're gonna be able to get it. And then as soon as that's done, they move on to Amazon's Lord of the Rings and cancel their subscription to crap, I can't even remember what example I was using. Disney Plus, and then they move it over to Prime Video so that they can watch Lord of the Rings and be able to move back and forth, everything like that. So with that being said, that's churn. And a lot of people are accounting for that market, that change in the market being what was accounting for all of this. The other one that is not so talked about is the fact that, if people remember, Netflix held a huge portion of this market because they were working out streaming deals with NBC, CBS, everybody under the sun to be able to get their series and put it up on Netflix. And so at that point, Netflix has been taking a huge dive in its stocks. And the main reason being is that people are unsubscribing and instead going to where their favorite shows are. So, for example, a lot of people came to Netflix in response to their releasing Friends onto the platform. Oh, well, Friends is no longer there. It's on Peacock. So people went to go support Peacock instead. Or Star Trek fans supported Netflix because they had all the Star Trek series. They don't now because Paramount Plus has them. So they're going to support Paramount Plus. And this is ultimately affecting Netflix because at that point they don't have those syndication deals. They instead have to rely on what they have currently. So that being said, the first question that I actually want to get into for you guys is, what do you think the biggest do you agree with the analysts here, or do you think there's going to be other hurdles for streaming platforms to overcome in the coming years, not necessarily just 2022?
Yeah, so I think a big part of it is the market is so divided now. Like, if you want to watch, depending on what show you want to watch, you have to go to a different place. So it might not be churn. Well, that's definitely part of it. But it's also just Netflix doesn't have anything I want. Paramount does. I'll just go subscribe to Paramount and ignore Netflix.
Yep. Or in some cases, you have people who are doing this churn deal where they're only interested in, okay, that series looks cool. I'll subscribe to go watch it, and then I will unsubscribe the second the series is over. And yeah. they won't think twice about it. Whereas I know that a lot of people who do streaming tend to go kind of my route, where it's like, it's not just the new things that are coming out, it's what they have existing on the platform. So at that point, Disney Plus has a huge archive to be able to bounce into, and it makes sense to have Disney Plus, whereas Netflix used to have that archive. They don't necessarily have that anymore.
And I also feel like a lot of the older shows from 10 years ago, that's the archive that Netflix is losing. Yeah. So Netflix might have a really big hit, like Squid Game was super popular. Mm-hmm. But a year or two or now, how many people will subscribe to Netflix to watch Squid Game?
That's true. I think, and I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people, myself included, we kept our Netflix subscriptions not necessarily for the new stuff that they were doing, because I couldn't give two shits about things like Cuties. I instead was keeping it because Star Trek was on there. And also another one, Power Rangers, was on there. And so me and my wife had fun going back and watching old school Power Rangers just to relive that nostalgia. And now with those contracts gone, there's zero to no reason for me to have that aside from maybe going to finish Castlevania, which I'm not sure if I want to do personally, but that's kind of the motivator now. So it's definitely something that has to be considered with it, is that now Netflix isn't the primary nostalgia hub anymore.
Okay, it's interesting too. Like, I'm interested in like the market and economics as a whole, and seeing like Netflix's stock, how it took a dive recently. It's basically right where it was at stock wise before the pandemic started.
Yep. That's the
So-
funny thing that I find from a lot of people is that, yes, did it take a dive? Yes, it did. But it only basically balanced out to what it was originally. And so at that point, can you really call it like... I actually saw a lot of analysts saying, Netflix is going to be dead within a year! And I mean, do you agree with that?
I could see it like losing market share, but it's like they're making money now.
Yeah.
So even if they like, it might be a case where it's like stops growing as much, which I feel like a lot of tech is going to go that way before long.
Yes.
But, like it'll like level off, it'll like steady profits, steady subscribers, not much growth, but like it'll stabilize.
Exactly. And so at that point, like, I think that they'll lose a lot of... I think it's exactly how you kind of pointed it out. I think they'll lose a lot of market share, and it'll be basically distributed amongst the new streaming platforms that they're working up against. It'll just depend on what new content that they are providing, as well as what legacy content they can provide. Now that pretty much all the major studios are in the streaming game. Because they have to go work out those deals. Thankfully, I think Prime Video has kind of figured out how to do that, because they've been able to work out a lot of studio deals to be able to get the new releases. So at that point, if you want to watch Wonder Woman 1984, there was a point where you couldn't watch it on HBO Max. You could only watch it on Prime Video because they had the contract. So, I mean, Amazon has been able to figure out their kind of niche there. I don't know if I could say Netflix has.
So does Prime Video cost extra beyond Amazon Prime, or is that like included?
So they've changed their structure, which I think overall was a very good idea, because overall Prime was basically more package oriented than it was for Prime Video. So they finally separated that out. If you have a Prime Video subscription, you get access to like the select series that they allow for you. So if you want to be able to watch specific anime, you're allowed to be able to do that, but you don't get the package benefits anymore. They separated that out.
Okay, so you don't get everything with your Prime membership.
Yeah.
You have to
Now you have different tiers. So you have they're still calling that Prime, but now there's Prime Video, and that's their distinction.
Okay. Yes, I guess that does help. That like gets it. A lot of people just have Amazon Prime, so that gets them some of it, but it also advertises the rest they have to pay extra for.
The other thing that helps out Prime Video quite a bit, that I know they have over Netflix. Netflix has never been able to do this. They've worked out deals with all the premium channels like Stars and Skinamax and HBO. Well, HBO's not really in there anymore, but Stars, Cinemax, all that stuff, and because they have streaming available as well, and so they work through Prime Video, and you can basically purchase their membership through Prime Video to be able to watch stuff on their platform. So if they have exclusive stuff, like Stars has had a few and Cinemax has had a few, you have to go there to be able to watch them. So that's worked out in their favor. Really quick, Alex, like, what do you think about this situation? What do you think streaming platforms are going to be facing 2022 and beyond?
I think Rising, and you've both said it, it's really just at this point a balancing out. I don't think any one of them's really gonna die necessarily, or right? At least none of the major ones that are out there. Certainly not
Well,
Netflix.
Actually, there is one, but we'll get there in a minute.
Which one?
Peacock. So Peacock is
okay.
officially announced that they are folding. I can't remember when their closing date is, but NBC Universal is bowing out. Maybe to go rework it. I don't know. but they already dumped the WWE Network, which was officially on their stuff, and I think Disney picked that up. Oh, that's gonna be so funny. The WWE Network on Disney Plus. That's gonna be hilarious.
That's kind of perfect.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Vince would love it, except all of his stuff, all of the stuff that made him famous, or made the Attitude Era famous, you can't show on Disney Plus. So, yeah, but Peacock has announced that they are going to be folding, so maybe that works out in Netflix's favor. They can maybe get that Friends contract again.
Yeah, I mean, they already got Seinfeld on
Yeah, I'm seeing
Netflix,
other
so-
articles saying like Peacock's doing more things with animation.
Are they?
Yeah, because there's
Okay.
an article like today. It says it's bolstering animated kids programming with like getting some new movies and stuff.
Maybe they've landed some deals that I'm not aware of. Because the last thing I heard, or the last thing I read was, and granted, I will admit, it was like mid to late January, where it was basically saying that Peacock is probably the worst streaming platform right now financially, and that they were going to have to fold. And I know one of the big ways they folded was WWE Network, because that was not bringing anybody in.
Yes, they might have like sold that, but yeah, like there's the remake of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that just came out on there.
Oh yeah, that's right. That is theirs, isn't it? I keep on thinking that's Paramount. So okay, well that's probably going to work out. So hopefully Peacock has kind of figured out their issues, and so they can kind of level things off. But in particular, Alex, what's your take on how Netflix is going to have to adapt? Because for the longest time they were that big bloated hub of everything nostalgic, and I mean Hulu was too, but Hulu figured out how to do it with being able to incorporate live TV into it. What is Alex?
Lot, right?
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. When it comes to Netflix, I think well, you got two things. You still got original programming that's helping them. I mean, they just dropped a much of money to continue Squid Game because Squid Game has been a huge hit for them already, right? I think it'd also do them good to potentially go.
Maybe you guys could clarify this for me. Did they pay for Squid Game, or Squid Game was just made and then they streamed it?
I think it like started off with them.
Okay.
I think I don't think they funded.
I know
don't
like
think
a
they
Korean
funded or produced the
director is in
series.
charge of it, but
Yeah, it's a Korean show.
I didn't know if
but- Yeah.
Netflix was part of that the finances of it.
I don't think so. I think they just paid for the exclusive streaming rights,
Okay.
and but I think they are going forward with like a sequel or a second series of something with
Okay.
as part of a co-production because the show's been such a huge hit for them. So I think for Netflix, obviously you got stuff like that.
Well, it
right?
looks like Netflix ordered it and that like made it into the 9-episode series.
Oh, okay. So Netflix
Yeah,
was
like
able to
it was
help
originally
get
going to be a
greenlit.
movie, then like Netflix bought it at some point.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the scriptwriter went to Netflix and like apparently sold it to them.
So basically adding into their war chest. So
Yeah,
Okay.
so like yeah, so it looks like they're the ones who paid for it. I don't know like if there are other funders, but
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think obviously original programming is going to keep them going because they are kind of the pioneer of that. When obviously Netflix just started off as a rental company, just to rent first,
Yeah.
obviously to rent DVDs in the mail, then became a streaming.
Which I think is
service.
still a thing, isn't it?
Last I remember we talked about this with like quite a while ago with Romney. Romney like said it's a separate service. Like
Yeah, they separated the
DVD.
business, but
yeah,
I don't know if that's actively still going on. Like that would be my question: is if Netflix was still working that way as a business model, as well as I'd also like to know if GameFly is still working that way as a model.
yeah. I remember Romney said they still did it. Like it's a separate arm of their company that still does
Yeah.
DVD rentals. But yeah,
yeah,
So-
I imagine it's pretty small in comparison.
yeah, because I mean the streaming's really taken over now. So, but yeah, Netflix really is kind of the people who really essentially pioneered the idea of original programming for streaming and original movies, and they're still going strong because they've been able to continue grabbing a lot of like high-end Hollywood filmmakers, like David Fincher.
Yep.
I think Guillermo del Toro's even made exclusives for Netflix. So
Yeah, and
I
they've
think-
got a couple of big names developing stuff behind the scenes. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but like it's always been a big deal when they announce like, oh, the next big David Lynch production is going to be done by Netflix.
Yeah, so it makes sense that right now the market's kind of, like you're saying, balancing out.
Mhm.
Yeah, they may have dropped a little bit. I'm sure everybody's kind of seen a little bit of a drop because things
Yeah.
are opening back up and more people are going back to work. And probably, yeah, some people are probably juggling streaming services. Like they'll drop them until something else piques their interest and then they'll resubscribe again.
Yeah, or it could also be like people going back to work so they don't have as much time for streaming. So they
Mhm.
come from like 2 services down to one.
Well, and another thing that's also definitely helped out streaming services, depending on the one you're talking about, but this is one of those times where I will compliment Netflix. The fact that they have done so much work on their mobile app has helped them out, in my opinion, dramatically, just based off the fact that, so now if you go into an office environment, so many people on their lunch break just have their phone out and they're just watching something on Netflix or some, like Prime Video has a mobile app that's working. I think even Crunchyroll does, doesn't it, Alex?
Yeah, Crunchyroll is a mobile app.
So at that
Yeah,
point, like you have that happening more often. So that's actually been a step in the right direction for a lot of those. I think the only one that can't necessarily say that, I want to say that people have complained about HBO Max's mobile app, that it's not necessarily as refined, but I think that's the only one that I've heard.
yeah. I know that at least previously, a lot of the apps, like the PlayStation apps for like Crunchyroll and Funimation,
Yes.
they were like they were pretty bad and like would cut out a lot.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember when they first launched these apps, it was basically that they were, I don't even know what to call them. They were low grade browser apps that kind of worked. Like the best example that I'm gonna give is when Netflix got an app on the Wii, which what I'm not knocking that. That was a good idea, but it was so effing basic of a browser that like being able to watch anything on it for the first couple of years was extremely difficult.
Well, I'm
Um,
talking about like more recently, like a couple of years ago, how basically bad the apps were, making it so my place it's easier to like get my laptop out, plug in my TV, than actually use the apps. So that pushed me away from like streaming anime through the apps for quite a bit.
yeah,
'Cause, like,
and in that case, you probably just went to your PC directly because that's the only that's the only thing you could trust.
yeah, I basically just like started downloading the anime because I know this works. I'll get a good product.
Okay, so at that point, the next question that I kind of want to get into is what is going like not necessarily the challenges, but what is necessarily the quirk that is keeping these streaming platforms afloat, and what they're going to be able to do further on, because it's fairly safe to say that every one of them under the sun has some kind of original work that they're trying to get out. I mean, obviously the ones I can point out, Netflix has Squid Game, Prime Video has Lord of the Rings, as well as Wheel of Time. HBO Max has crap. What was the one? Because they're expanding on their DC stuff. So like the Peacemaker series is there. So at that point, what is going to help these people continue to survive? I would say with Netflix, I mean, I know that other streaming platforms do this, but the fact that the Dave Chappelle situation caused so much controversy, I think is in part. Okay, now that we're back, because I'm still having some issues, I'm just going to go ahead and say this, guys. If we have enough issues, I might have to just do a straight up recording and put it up later, but I will do my very best here, because unfortunately I am subject to the whims of the internet, and the whims of the internet don't like me tonight, apparently. So where I lost you guys was I was bringing up Dave Chappelle and the fact that with all the controversy that happened around him, it brought an eye to the fact that Netflix was the place for stand-up comedians to get their specials on. I know that a few other companies have been able to do those, but after listening to a few podcasts by Joe Rogan, Bert Kreischer, I think even Tom Segura has talked about this, Netflix is the place to be if you want to do a comedy special. So at that point, maybe that's their niche, unless you guys think I'm wrong.
I feel like that's definitely one of their niches. I feel like there's definitely an audience for it, but I don't feel like people will stay continuously subscribed to Netflix just for the comedy.
No, I think what they're probably going to do is a lot of people are going to stay for things like Squid Game, and maybe even some of the other stuff that like Adi Shankar has promised to be able to deliver for Netflix. I mean, I'm still excited for the Devil May Cry series that he talked about. But, I mean, at least at that point, we can say that they have that niche. I would say that Amazon Prime probably has that niche with what I explained earlier and how they have Stars and Cinemax and all those people working with them. Plus, they have the new releases right off the bat. Hulu probably has live TV. I'm trying to think of what Crunchyroll's advantages would be.
I feel like Crunchyroll is just anime in general because
it probably is. Like it's probably the simulcasting because it's not just anime. It's live action series if you want to watch them.
Yeah, I don't feel like there are many live action series on Crunchyroll that are like popular. I guess they have some K dramas and stuff.
No, like Funimation has way more live action series, but I have noticed that they've had an uptick in doing those simulcast as well.
Yeah, so I feel like if you want to simulcast anime, you go to Crunchyroll or Funimation.
Yeah,
so they
exactly.
basically have them locked down. Funimation, especially if you want English dubs.
Okay.
Crunchyroll's starting to get some dubs now too.
Yes,
Yeah,
well, because they got Rising the Shield Hero, and I think they've already claimed season 2 is going to get dubbed by them as well.
Yeah, so they have some. I think ReZero they did the dub for. I might be wrong though.
Okay. And they also have their own original content because, well, High Guardian Spice isn't a good example. I have heard that there are a few others that are on the way from major anime property or major anime studios that are going to be producing for them as well.
I know that there are a couple of them, like they were on the production committee first, so they're like one of the sponsors that ended up doing well. I forget which one that I'm thinking of though. But yeah, I feel like
lot, though. Yeah,
I feel like anime
Because the only
wise,
one I was aware of was High Guardian Spice. So
yeah, there have been a few others. Like they haven't been as involved, but like they were definitely one of the people behind it.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
I was also like, because I feel like that's a big advantage over Netflix. Because like Netflix has a good number of like big historical ones, but of the Netflix originals, there are like 100 and so anime.
mhm.
Very few of those I found were worthwhile though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, but it's still at that point. I would still say their advantage is the simulcasts. The simulcasts are really what works out for them, and I think what keeps anime fans there, honestly, because they want to watch the new seasons, and this is a direct way for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, and they also have like a really good backlog too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a historical anime, you can go to Crunchyroll and more than likely find it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's also Retro Crush in that regard, but Retro Crush has designed themselves in a fascinating way because they haven't necessarily made it so that they can make a profit. They've basically established it to be able to make the ads pay for the servers.
Okay.
It's a weird deal. I wish I could explain it far better than that. But basically, their deal is putting on as much legacy anime, even if it's corny as hell, as possible, because there's a market for it. And then at that point, they just, since you have to have ads, they don't let you have a membership per se. You just have to watch the ads. They just use the ad revenue to pay for the servers.
Huh. So this is something interesting. I've been watching the anime Psychopaths lately, which is like one from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Funimation has the first season of it, but Amazon Prime is the people who have the third season.
Yeah, I have also seen this happen with a few other things with Prime. Prime is not necessarily grabbing entire series, they are grabbing seasons. And they're basically trying to grab them as cheaply as they can, especially with legacy anime, because I noticed there was a point where they had, I want to say it was like they had the first 2 seasons of One Piece, and then they had like season 8. They didn't have anything in between, and then they've just been slowly filling that gap. So, like, if you wanted to watch One Piece on Amazon, it was still not a worthwhile thing to do, but it was getting better. And actually,
What's interesting about that though is like you watch the first 2 seasons through like normal places, then you want to watch season 3, but say Funimation doesn't have that anymore.
mm-hmm.
So you're forced to either watch on Amazon or pirate it, which is a whole different topic.
Well, and trust me, that certain profession of sailing the 7 seas is going to get brought up tonight because I know that there's also going to be a big upsurge in 2022 of pirating. especially with certain streaming platforms wanting to make their own statements on the matter. But the other thing that I want to point out, because I mean, I hate to bring this back because it tends to irritate Alex a little bit, but you know, Crunchyroll is always good with anime, but every other streaming platform has always had issues when it comes to anime. Now that anime has become more prevalent, are we going to see that continue, or are they going to finally get their freaking act together? I in particular am saying Netflix. Netflix has never truly figured out anime, except I would say in the last 6 months with being able to have a series like One Punch Man, where it's just one series or one season, and they don't have to worry about anything else. But then
Well,
when it
there's
comes
season
to
2
like
One
their
Punch Man
their
too.
well, when it comes to their bringing in things like Inuyasha, where they only got the Japanese dub, not the English dub, that hurt them. So, like, yeah, do we see that continuing, or are they actually going to take it seriously?
I don't think Netflix will ever truly get anime.
They're basically that grandpa that talks to you about your animus.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
and you don't consider Prime to be that? I kind of think
I-
Prime's there. I mean, they're getting a little better, but I think they're still kind of there.
The problem is I don't think Prime. See, everybody else, when it comes to like the simulcast market,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like Netflix, at least the US Netflix. Japan Netflix is a little different, but like the US Netflix just doesn't really get it, and I just don't think Prime is there either.
I really feel like there's not, if you're going to like subscribe to something to watch anime, Netflix is not where you would go for it.
Yes, but
Especially,
I mean, I would also argue that Amazon's not necessarily the place. If you want like a bunch of retro anime that was beloved when you were a kid, Hulu's at least another place where you can go to.
but does Hulu have much that's exclusive anime wise?
They do have a few. I mean, they have the deal with Funimation, but I mean, they've been the one place that I think has hosted every single season of Yu-Gi-Oh for the longest time. They had the original Beyblade for a long time as well, and the first 4 seasons of Digimon, which nobody else had. So at that, like, they've been able to grab some of the nostalgia based franchises and be able to keep hold of them. I don't know if that's going to stay forever, but I mean, compared to Netflix that only has, what is it, like the first 2 seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, so that might be like the more like nostalgic ones.
Yeah, they have Duelist Kingdom and they have the start of Battle City, and that's it. So like, if you want to go and get your Yu-Gi-Oh on, you have to do that with Hulu. So so that being said, the other thing I think is going to also go in Netflix's favor when it comes to anime is the fact that they're going the direction that they're going with like Castlevania, with Voltron. They're trying to make their own animated content. And thankfully, it's not just animated. They're actually branching into CG and a couple of other ways to be able to keep themselves unique. But I don't know. It just depends on what they're able to actually land. I have heard talk also that there's a Squid Game anime that's being considered, and Netflix wants that right off the bat. So maybe that'll work out in their favor. I will say the one thing that I think didn't work out in their favor was Ava, because they got the rights to redub Ava, and then they lost the rights to 4.0. That definitely blew up in their face.
Yeah, I feel like the whole dub was like not received well.
No, I mean, Alex, correct us if we're wrong because you followed that.
I think it was pretty split. I mean, some people were fine with it, others just prefer the original. And it really is going to come down to your, I think, personal taste about how you like your dubbing, right? Because with the Netflix dub, Netflix, you could definitely sense Kara had a lot to do with it. Like their in-house, because their own in-house translator reworked on the Netflix dub, so it's, strictly speaking, it is a little more faithful to the original Japanese, but because of that, it comes out a little more clunky.
Yeah.
it gets down to that translation versus localization debate in terms of how you like your dubbing.
I've seen a lot of translations that have happened that way. In fact, because you and I have talked about this a couple of times, like when I was criticizing the Gundam Build Fighters dub, and that's basically what
Build
they did
Fighters or
too.
Seed?
What was that?
Are you thinking of Seed rather? The
No,
redub of Seed?
when I told you about how Build Fighters craptastic
Oh,
dub
right,
was
yeah.
there, but that's what they did too. Is that they tried to adhere to like word for word translation, and it didn't sound right.
Yeah.
The other
And
one I
that-
will say that did that was Food Wars when they tried to dub it.
Right.
You can't do just straight Japanese to English. It doesn't work.
Yeah, like you need someone who like understands both languages and like how the script should flow and all that.
Yes, and if you're not going to do that right, then you might as well not do it. Kind of thing, because a lot of those dedicated fans, they'll watch the sub. They don't care. They're still being part of Gundam. They're still being part of Shield Hero or whatever they're watching. So that doesn't necessarily affect them. Now, our listeners I've actually reached out to our listeners and asked for things that maybe these streaming platforms can do, and I want to bring them up with you guys because some of these ideas from streaming platforms have been stupid, and some of them might have actually been good ideas, but this is how the streaming platforms are basically trying to get themselves to survive. The first one I want to bring up is from Disney Plus, and a lot of streaming platforms are considering doing this, which is their premium movie additional pay. So, do you know what this is, Rising Sun?
Yeah, I know like Disney Plus did that. Like as a movie coming out of the theater, you could also like buy it on there right away.
Yeah, so basically what you could do is for, I think it was what, $35, if you didn't want to watch a movie in the theater, then you paid that much to be able to get access to it for, I want to say it was like a week or something like that. It wasn't even permanent. So like at some point that actually died off.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, because I feel like people were saying like that was too expensive, but they could still like do something similar in the future too. Like you have to pay $5 extra for this certain movie.
Exactly. And so a lot of streaming platforms are actually considering this, not just for movies that are coming out on their platforms, but for series as well. Basically, what they're proposing with this is, for those who don't know, the way that Disney does it different than anybody else is they still release the content week by week, whereas like Netflix puts everything out. That's the way that it goes. They just put everything out for everybody to see. So, and actually, I am getting clarified in the chat. Disney Plus, it was permanent. So, okay, I'd heard that it was like so many hours or whatever, like Amazon, where you rent it. But what this is basically is, instead of that weekly content, they're coming up with a way to be able to do a premium price so that you unlock the whole season. And then you can watch it the way that you want to, but it would be basically the price of like a TV season at Target, so like $45. So for an 8-episode season, for $45 you could watch everything, or you could just wait weekly.
Yeah, I would definitely just wait weekly, unless because I feel like
I think
just
everybody
waiting.
would.
Yeah, because I'm kind of cheap as it is, so I would be fine with waiting.
Yeah.
And I might be willing to like buy a DVD of a show I really like, but that's by far the exception of everything I watch.
Let me ask you this, Rising Sun. Which would you rather do? Pay $45 right off the bat to be able to take a roll of the dice that this series is going to be good, and if it isn't, then, well, guess what? You're out $45. Or watch the episodes week by week, and then when eventually it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray, you just purchase that.
Yeah, and if it was worth purchasing that way, then I would consider it.
Yeah, and that's what I think that kind of counters that, but I do know a lot of streaming platforms are considering that aspect. Alex, what do you think about that concept of basically attaching a premium price to either a movie or to a series?
I hate that personally. It's like we're already paying you monthly for the privilege of streaming. Do you really need to add more nickel and diming on top of me?
yeah, this doesn't seem to me like it's going to be a good business practice in the long run for streaming platforms to look into. I dare say, I actually think what would help is just that every streaming platform kind of adopt what Disney Plus has done. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but at least at that point, you know, if you're going to do like a 12 episode season, that's 3 months. That's a quarter of a year that people have to pay for your subscriptions, unless they hate what you're doing, and then you still get that 1 month, right, or that 2 months. But that's a quarter. Like, there's more security there.
And I feel like if, or say you like release or you charge people extra to see it right away, if it's a big show, there's gonna be a lot of conversations about it, so people won't want to miss out.
Yes.
So then again, they might just go with the piracy option instead.
A lot of people might actually consider that, especially if, say, you know, Netflix came out with Cobra Kai season 4, which everybody loved, but then they also came out with, again, I'm not picking on anything, but like they came out with something like Dear White People or the Dave Chappelle Sticks and Stones, and you don't want to necessarily pay for that. So at that point, a lot of people, like Rising Sun is saying, are looking into piracy to acquire access to these, or in some cases, they're basically looking to work out deals with friends and other neighbors to get onto their account, because they don't necessarily have that problem, but they want to have that water cooler conversation.
Yeah, or it's like, it might be not worth buying for yourself, but say split it with your family or roommate or whatever. Mm-hmm. Half the price, that might be more reasonable too.
Yeah, and so at that point, I think overall it still works out for them, even if it's just one person that has 3 other people watching that account. I think that still works out for them because they still are getting paid somewhat.
Yeah, like 2 other people are currently using my Crunchyroll account.
I don't want you to admit who they are, because I don't want Ancient Jones and Agent Smith coming to get them. But I'm glad that... Well, I mean, for a while, Alex was using mine. So.
Yeah, and don't worry, Agents. It's probably not Drake. He's not doing anything wrong as far as I know.
Agent Jones and Agent Smith have it in for me. They've had it in for me for a while now, so don't worry about it. I've done way too many... It's too late to turn back Rising Sun. It's just too late. So, I'm trying to think. Alex, did you chime in on this?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure on that. So this one, I have to bring it up because Alex just loves this subject. Just loves it so much. And when streaming platforms are considering it, he's just so happy about it. A lot of streaming platforms are considering this, and a few of them have already implemented it. So there are tiered packages to a lot of these streaming platforms, right?
Right.
Well, a lot of companies, like, say, Crunchyroll, I'm going to use Crunchyroll because they're the perfect example here, is they have a paid tier. In fact, they have 2 of them. So at that point, if you pay, you don't get ads. And that's the only clincher there. They still are able to get ads for people who don't want to pay for a subscription. You know, they still are able to get something out of that, right?
Right.
Well, in the case of HBO Max, and actually Peacock got some backlash for doing this as well, and I think Paramount Plus as well. They have now basically worked into their tier packages that their lowest tier and everything upwards still includes ads. So you are paying for the ads, roughly. And in some cases, these basic tier packages are $10 to $15 a month. So if you didn't want those ads, too bad, you're paying for them. That silence is Alex's brain exploding.
Apparently Amazon has that with some of their shows on Prime.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hulu had it for a while. Eventually, they kind of adopted a similar concept as Crunchyroll, and just had the basic ads, but now they have ads everywhere because they just have to have them. But
well, Hulu has like ads for $7 a month or no ads for $13 a month.
Yeah, that's right. You have to pay their premium tier to be able to get no ads.
Yeah.
So at that point, you have to pay the extra amount of money, which is probably how a lot of these are also going to do it. Is like, if you don't want the ads, then you have to pay our highest tier.
Yeah, that's why I respect Crunchyroll. Like, if you pay even their low tier, you get rid of all the ads.
Well,
And,
yeah,
like,
exactly. Because at that point, to me, it's a financial security thing. If you have people that don't want to subscribe and they still want to watch the anime, you're at least getting the ad revenue. So
yeah, and I feel like,
there's that
especially with
security
anime,
blanket.
yeah, like with the anime, it's more of a younger audience, so
Mhm.
they might not be able to pay for it. But if they like watch an ad or two every show that they watch, they're getting something from them.
Now, Alex, I know, has trouble watching ads. And so when I bring up the fact that as a bare minimum, you still have to pay for ads, how do you feel about that, Alex?
It's if I want to pay for ads, I'll get cable TV. Come
Which
on.
you technically do.
Yes, through my parents' things. But anyway, but it's like, we're paying for this. The very least you can do is remove the damn ads. That's why we're paying
I
for
don't
it.
think this is a good idea, and I think this is going to blow up in a lot of streaming platforms' faces.
Yeah,
Because they're
I know
going to look
Netflix is
at
considering this too.
what was that?
And Netflix was also
Yeah,
considering
they did.
this too.
They considered it, and they ultimately said no.
Yeah.
Because at the time they looked at platforms like Crunchyroll and said, yeah, they have that security blanket, and so if we were going to do that, that's how we would need to do it. We couldn't put it in our tiers.
If you want to run ads, then you should have a free service where people who watch the free service have to watch the ads.
I have to be honest here. Why aren't these platforms considering the security blanket that Crunchyroll has? Like, I get it. Crunchyroll has financial issues. I mean, in particular, they're spending way too much on like studio areas to be able to house their employees. I get that concept. But they at least, when you look at the streaming platform, they have that security blanket. And then if you don't want ads, because, a lot of kids are impatient and they don't know what to do when they have commercials. They aren't wise like us and know that you can make a sandwich and come back. And so at that point, they're willing to pay that $10 a month so they don't have to deal with it ever again. Kind of thing. So, I mean, why aren't other platforms considering this as a minimum? Excuse me.
I've always wondered why more don't.
Yeah, it's a curious thing to me. I don't know why you haven't at least considered, okay, if we have to have the ad revenue, then let's do this. I think even ESPN does this, but ESPN, like the way that, I guess I can't use them anymore because they don't have their own streaming app. They have stuff with Disney Plus as well as Hulu. But when they were doing this at that point, like you got access to it, but you only you had to deal with a ton of commercials in between the games. But people were sports fans were willing to deal with that because they still wanted to watch the game. So I don't know why that was and the way that you avoided them was the sports bars because they paid those premium subscriptions and then everybody watched the Super Bowl at a bar. Oh,
and
joy.
then you get then you supplement that by buying food and drinks and whatever.
Exactly. And it helps out businesses as well. So you can work out kind of a closed circuit deal for a lot of these places and be able to do high-end sporting events. But I would also say that streaming platforms need to consider that and even movie theaters need to consider that because, man, can you think how much I don't know what they're called, but a beer garden movie theater, one that sells alcohol, if they were hosting the series, the season finale of The Mandalorian, you'd have tons of people gathering.
Now I want to see them air the final Attack on Titan episode in a big theater.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this at all, but and maybe I'll see if I can find a video of it. When the Mandalorian reveal of Luke Skywalker happened, they basically hyped the hell out of it, and some sports bars took advantage of this and said, if you guys want to watch this, and we'll have a Star Wars party here, and then everybody together got to see the Luke reveal. And holy shit, that was cool. And so you had a bunch of reactions online of these bars and even in some cases, these small movie theaters reacting to Luke Skywalker on screen again.
Yes, they have been doing like some of the anime movies in theaters, which is like a cool effect, but then you also have to like pay the movie theater cost for a movie that you may or may not enjoy, so that can definitely be a turn off unless it's like a series that you know.
Yeah, I don't know why this hasn't been looked into. I mean, you know, pay-per-view as a service still exists. And so at that point, I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's dying. I would disagree with you.
It might be like dying to the traditional sense, but can you still like take advantage of that model for certain
Well, I know
things?
that the UFC takes advantage of it wholeheartedly, and with every sense, in every sense of the word, and it makes sense because at that point they still kind of adopt a lot of like what wrestling used to do, and in some cases what boxing used to do, where they kept the big fights happening at certain quarters, and then at that point putting on a premium for that, so that people still had to pay for that big super mega card that they wanted to see. And so at that point, like I know I've had an argument or two with people saying pay-per-view is dead. I disagree. I think it's still up and running. And frankly, I think a couple of these platforms need to consider it to be able to do their releases. Excuse me. Sorry, guys, I've got a bit of a cold. So that being said, yeah, don't make us pay for ads. If you want us to pay, like, even in the concept of something like YouTube Red, don't make us pay for ads, as like pay the subscription and then also have to deal with the ads. It's ridiculous, and some people will just sit there and go, "Why should we support that?" And for good reason. So that also being said, and I know that some people are also wanting us to get into game streaming, and I'm not gonna do that, mainly because streaming games is a whole other animal compared to streaming movies and TV. So that's excuse me, that's going to be an unpacking all on its own. So I'm not necessarily going to worry about that.
Yeah, like games like different enough is like a whole different thing.
Yeah, because at that point, I know that services like Nintendo Switch offer that. You still have Stadia, although I did find it funny that Google is looking to rename Stadia just to avoid all the bad press that they've gotten with Stadia.
Well, Stadia's dead now, so
Believe it or not, it's still up and running.
yeah, it's
but
running
very
for now,
minimal.
but they're getting ready to just abandon ship with Stadia.
Pretty much. That's why I'm saying they're getting ready to rename it, and so they're hoping that they can relaunch it. So at that, I mean, we all know that that's not going to happen, but you won't tell anybody at Google otherwise. The other thing that I also want to kind of bring up here, since we're all anime fans, Retro Crush again has a really great plan that they have in place. They have nothing but nostalgic anime that this is not being mean, but a lot of people, unless they're nostalgic about them, aren't necessarily going to pay for MD Geist. Okay? And so at that point, what Retro Crush does is they say, okay, well, there's nostalgic value here. We will put it up on our platform, but you have to deal with ads. And that's just the way that it goes. And so I'm kind of wondering if any streaming platform is struggling until they find their feet, is this something that they can consider? Is basically doing what Retro Crush has done, where they make the ads basically pay for the servers.
I feel like it might work better for them because the retro anime might be cheaper to like get licenses for. So instead of like trying to fight over like the Demon Slayer, My Hero, all those which I'm sure cost lots of licenses,
Yes.
buy these cheap ones, put them up here.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, Funimation goes out of their way to pay to simulcast those as well, right?
Yeah, like I think Funimation and Crunchyroll both have most of those.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have all, but I
They
think
don't have every single one of them. I remember oh, what was the other? There was one that they wanted the streaming the simulcast rights and they couldn't get it. I want to say it was My Hero, but it might have been Dr.
Funimation
Stone
definitely
or
has.
something like that.
They have
Funimation
My
definitely has
Hero.
My Hero because they're simul-dubbing it.
Yeah.
They certainly wanted Evangelion, but that went to Netflix.
Yeah, they wanted that. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was like Dr. Stone or something like that, where they wanted it but they couldn't get it.
Yeah, it looks like Demon Slayer, both of them have their streaming it.
Excuse me. So at that point, I mean, that's definitely something that they can consider. When it comes to the original content that some of these streaming platforms are putting out, is there anything that these streaming platforms need to keep in mind in 2022 when creating that stuff? I would say watching budget. I think budget is a big deal for them. We've seen a lot of budget go into avenues like the Mandalorian, where in some cases some actors might have been paid a little bit too much, and that overall hurt the production. So I definitely think that budget has to be taken into consideration for some of the big streaming platforms. But
yeah, I feel like they still might want to pay extra just to make sure they have a big product that they can sell.
yes, and a worthwhile product.
Yeah, because I feel like it worked out well for Disney Plus. Like Mandalorian was like a big thing from Star Wars. It seems like it was well received, so that like drew a lot of people to Disney Plus. And maybe it wasn't like financially viable, but that drew their audience in, and now they just have to keep them instead of acquiring them.
Yeah. Another thing that maybe also needs to be considered here. I'm just throwing this out here. So we have a lot of like major Hollywood productions working on this original content and able to put their big budgets towards it. What do we think the opportunity is going to look like for independent, not creators, but independent directors who maybe want to try out making a series and all that, and they go to Netflix with their production plan? Do we see like an upturn of indie creations happening as well?
I could see that because under like conventional like movie theaters, you need to basically have the distribution of it and be able to compete with like, okay, you have 10 screens, you can only show so many things. Why would I show this indie movie? Well, Netflix can put whatever they want on their servers. There's not really an opportunity cost there.
Yeah, so basically, like, here's an example that I will give. So at that point, James Rolfe, aka the Angry Video Game Nerds, decides to create an independent horror series, and he approaches Netflix or Prime Video to be able to get it out there. It's a lot more advantageous for him to do that compared to what indie directors usually have to do, which is they basically carry the print to all the movie festivals that they go to, and so that means they have to travel, they have to use gas, they have to travel with a crew to be able to showcase these things. And so at that point, if it's just on a streaming platform, it lets a lot more audience get access to it than necessarily they would have had originally. Right, Alex?
That's correct. Yeah.
So
I think this would be a real advantage, and I think this is kind of the perfect time for a lot of these streaming platforms to really maybe start jumping on the indie circuit a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. They're probably gonna have to watch their budgets a little more because certainly some subscribers counts might be peaking, others might be kind of slowing down for a bit. We'll see.
Yeah,
But
and
this is such an ample time then to jump onto mid-budget to mid-budget works and to indie budget works.
Well, we see this some with anime, like with Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll tries to buy literally every anime that comes out. Some of them they can't get, but like even like small ones that they don't think will do well, they used to like spend a small amount of money or say like, hey, we'll give you like X% of the subscribers fees that come to this, however they do that. But that gives the small anime, they have an outlet, they can get streamed, and they're on one of the big sites now. They might not get a lot out of that, but at least it's out there for the audience to discover.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another thing that I mean, we've already seen examples of this, but I'm going to bring it up. I know it's a controversial topic, but Netflix, I'm still going to say, was in the right when it came to silencing people like Kevin Smith and Daniela Pineda when they started lashing out against fans or fan criticism and whatnot. And I get the argument that a lot of people can make that they are also being harassed, but when you're looking to advertise the product, fighting with your potential viewer base is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think a lot of streaming platforms actually need to consider this on whether or not because look, open dialogue is great, but if all you're going to do with the open dialogue is criticize people, and there's a reason on YouTube why we say don't feed the trolls. And in some cases, you could actually look at this the exact same way, is all you're doing is feeding the trolls and just making it worse for yourself. So I actually think this is another thing that streaming platforms need to consider, is that they have to scrutinize their talent as well as their staff to be able to make sure that they're not doing anything that is going to jeopardize the advertisement, the marketing, or the release of said product.
Mm-hmm.
Because I honestly, look, have whatever opinion you want about Masters of the Universe Revelation, okay? Like it, don't like it, whatever, okay? I get your point of view, but I can guarantee you this. Master of the Universe Revelation was hurt by Kevin Smith going out and parading and calling people dumbasses and everything like that under the sun. And how do I know that? Because Revelation Part 2's numbers were significantly less than Part 1's. Because Part 1 at least had a hype factor. Part 2 lost that because Kevin Smith was arguing with fans. And ultimately, Netflix did the right thing and they shut him down. And that seems wrong and that seems censorious, and I get that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of fans need to realize that these are that company's products. Yes, they are being made by Kevin Smith, but it's their money on the line. And if all your staff or your actors are going to do is go out and make things worse, then you should have you should have every right within your power to be able to stop that, so that you can be able to gain whatever profit you can from that. Am I wrong in thinking that, Rising Sun?
I don't know the details of what happened there, so I kind of be speculating. But I do think, yeah, it makes sense. Like, say there's an anime that's like controversial, people don't like it.
Well, you do know the concept that with a lot of talent in their contracts now, they actually have to give over their social media info to the company, because in the contract they might actually say that you have to advertise this upcoming series this many times on Twitter and this many times on Instagram. And so what they tried to do with that is, in the case of Kevin Smith, where he started lashing out at the fans that were criticizing Revelation, Netflix basically revoked his access. They I can't remember if they changed the password or whatever, but they basically made it so he couldn't tweet anymore.
Huh. Yeah, I feel like I get why they would do that, but it would still feel wrong. Like, I could see there being consequences for, like, say, like, I'm tweeting saying, advertise my company, hey, this company is doing cool things, like advertising that.
Yeah.
I would feel very bad if they, like, locked me out of my own Twitter account because of that.
It's a temporary thing. Because they don't get access to it the entire time.
Yeah, but it still feels like unprofessional to like you'll have some fans who like won't like something. Okay, that's fine. And like you could say like, oh, I disagree, or you missed these points, but like lash out and be or having conflict with them, that just is like a bad look and looks unprofessional.
Yeah, especially when in the case of actors or directors, I mean, what in your honest opinion, Rising Sun, what do you think is their highest priority? I would personally say it is getting butts in the seats of the movie theaters, the family rooms, to be able to go and watch the product. And if all you're going to do is insult them, all you're doing is telling them not to come.
Yeah, you're basically an employee of the streaming service. Basically, that's what the actor is basically creating a big mess for them, making the streaming service look bad.
Exactly. Or in the case of anime has had to deal with this a little bit, but thankfully the companies have put enough restrictions on their actors. The best example that I'm going to give here is Toei, in how they have their voice actors respond to criticisms that happen. Because I know with Super, even Japan was criticizing some of Dragon Ball Super, and they basically made it just like, okay, we get it, this is hurtful, but don't respond to it, because we still want to be able to get people to come episode by episode to watch Dragon Ball Super, and all of the actors just understood that. Whereas if you come to the States, it's not so widely understood. I think part of one of the biggest reasons that Cowboy Bebop had the bad reaction that it did, just in concept of people they could have brought in, is a lot of people saw the conflicts that were happening with Daniela Pineda, as well as the girl who played Ed, as well as one of the writers that they were getting into fights with.
Yeah, like I could just like picture it. Say like I make a video saying this anime is bad because XYZ, and then I get the staff of the anime like saying, "Oh, you're dumb," and like those things. That would just feel wrong and bad, and not how it should be.
Well, and also it's just to me it's insulting to, in this case Netflix, who is paying the money to have this having this lifelong dream become a reality, only to have it fail hard because you couldn't deal with a little bit of criticism. Like that's silly. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. We should be able to at least get something out of it.
And I guess I could see like if the actors are being harassed or something, at that point, like just block them.
And that's what they've ultimately done. Is like I said with Daniela Pineda, as soon as what was it, 4 days later, after she put out the catty video accusing everybody of sexism or whatnot, she basically got locked out of her account, and from there on in, a PR rep for not the Netflix account, it was the Netflix Go account, I think, was from there on in doing advertising for Cowboy Bebop. And that, in my opinion, that was a good decision. Because at that point, you at least could recover from the damage. And try to get as many neutral parties to view your product. And Alex has been quiet this whole time, so I have a feeling I have touched a nerve. Do I need to mute myself so that you can get stuff out, or?
I'm gonna scream your ears off. No, I'm kidding. I'm listening. I'm here. So, I think really just maybe they ought to consider hiring, publicists and social media managers. Right? So many companies, I think, understand social media now, but it makes me wonder why more like media companies don't have like more entertainment media. That is, don't have like more emphasis on social media managers when it comes to.
It just depends on the company, because you can tell when somebody has a good social media manager and when you can't, if you get my meaning. Like you can tell when it's somebody that knows what they're doing on these platforms, and it's, whomever's uncle's grandson that's running the Twitter account.
Yeah. I get it. It's such a hard line to draw when you're talking about somebody's own personal account versus tweeting on a corporate account or something, because that definitely grazed the line.
Grazed the line. I in turn actually agree on that. But I would my main argument on this is just, if you're an actor, if you're a director, if you're a writer, your job is to sell your product, which in the case of an actor is yourself. You want to get people to watch your performance. And if you're going to call them stupid and they end up not watching your performance, that's on you. Kind of thing.
It's like for my Twitter account, it's a personal account. If I tweet something dumb, it's like no one cares.
Yeah.
Well, if say I ran the Twitter for my company, they never let me do that. But if I tweet something dumb, that makes the whole company look bad. And these celebrities, actors, and all that, they're kind of between the two.
Yeah. Or you could do it the way I think it was Henry Cavill did this when he was filming The Witcher. He just hired a person to put things up regularly on his social media, and he would he'd send him pictures for the Instagram, and just say like,
Okay.
oh, put a funny thing in here. I think it was Henry Cavill that did this, and that might be the better way to do it, so that the actor can be more focused on the product and not necessarily on how it's being advertised.
Yeah, and again, it's like, despite it being their Twitter, it is them, but as a business.
Exactly, and in some cases you have to treat this as a business. I get that it's the business of entertainment, but and I get it that there are human beings that are involved. But the other thing that I just want to point out is a lot of money is being put into these efforts. Like Adi Shankar with Castlevania. Like, have you seen that Castlevania series at all, Rising Sun?
No, I haven't.
Like, that's crisp animation. That's somebody's hard fucking work that's going into it, and tireless hours. I mean, Alex has seen the first 4 episodes. Even you could say it looks gorgeous, right?
It looked really good.
Yeah, it looked really good. It had audio issues, but thankfully season 2 fixed that. But that's somebody's hard work, and then when somebody goes and mucks that up, say like a lot of people didn't like that Richard Armitage played Trevor Belmont, like he didn't lash out at anybody, and I think part of the reason that he didn't was because he knew how hard the animators were working, how hard Adi Shankar was working, how hard the audio people were working to be able to make this as great a product as they could. So at that point, all you can do is just lend whatever support you can to it. That's one thing I will hold the Castlevania staff over a lot of streaming projects now, is they sat down and they shut up. I even know the guy who played Alucard. He turned off his social media. And when he had his social media requirements, he hired a guy to do it. But he wanted to be as separated from that and more dedicated to the product than he ever could have been while running social media as well. And I think that was ultimately the best thing they could have done.
Yeah, he's like an actor, not an advertiser.
Exactly. Well, as an actor, you kind of have to be, but because ultimately you are selling yourself on any given product or any given project you're auditioning for. You're selling yourself, so you have to know at least a little bit of that. But if you know that criticism is a difficult thing for you, and you just opt to, I at least will have the respect for you that you opted to not listen to the criticism. Instead, you wanted to focus on the product.
Yeah, like disengage from that stuff. That's not helpful.
Yeah, and so at that point, you focused on what you could work on at that time. And I know as soon as season 1 was done and they got all the audio complaints, immediately they went and fixed those. And season 2 was so much better in that regard, both audio as well as some of the other hiccups that they had, because they listened. I get it. There are trolls out there that are just looking to do shitty things, but there's also some constructive criticism that's being offered there too. So you at least need to have somebody there listening to that. And in this case, I think they handled it the better way. They just had a social media team do it, not necessarily the writers, not necessarily the directors. They just had the social media team deal with it, and then the social media team explained it to them. See, Alex gets quiet when I do this, and then I actually worry if I've pissed him off.
No,
but
you're good. You're good.
So at that point, I guess the next big thing is, what else can we think of that streaming platforms need to do to survive from here on in? Because now, we have a bunch of big projects on the horizon. We have elements like churn that are going to affect how the market views streaming. I've even heard tell in some markets they are considering adding streaming packages to cable TV, which I know locally you can't do that. You have to buy them separately. But some people have basically said, oh, okay, we'll just treat these like premium channels and you just pay for them extra. So
combine that with cable.
That's the thing, is that they basically are becoming cable.
Yeah. So I guess my thought is, what would they need to survive? Like, looking at Netflix specifically, like, it's been profitable for years.
Yes.
So I feel like in a way they might just get to like a stabilization point. So like continue to produce like good shows, but also don't go all in on like one show, like spend a ton of money on something that's going to flop.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. I think, in all honesty, Netflix has made. So I hate to bring up He-Man again, but I do think, in regards to He-Man, there was a good decision that was made. Once Revelation was done, in case people didn't know this, there was a second series that was being advertised on Netflix. It was a CG He-Man series. And so at that point, they listened to the commentary about Revelation and said, okay, well, after part 2, we're not really going to look to do any projects like this anymore. But the other series was being successful. And so at that point, they looked at that and went, okay, we'll greenlight a season 2. We don't have a problem with that because this is doing well.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a big part of it is find things that do well, continue to do those. In a way, I don't like saying that because I want like more unique things.
Sure.
But at the same time, I also want more of the shows I do like that never got a second season or whatever.
Well, creatively, you want to, a lot of creative is basically throwing a bunch of spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Right.
And in some cases, what I'd actually like to see is I don't like to see things as a permanent failure. Instead, I would much rather see them come back and be able to fix that. If it's not the same series, that's fine, because lessons can be learned either way. So,
well, and I know,
so
yeah,
what,
I know
what
that,
I'm basically saying is like, if you couldn't do He-Man, that's fine, but maybe you can do Thundercats, and maybe it works better.
yeah, I know. Like we talked about, Squid Game as like an example of a big Netflix success, but I wonder how many other shows did Netflix invest a similar amount of money that just did not blow up. So it could be they saw that one, think, yeah, we'll make this, we'll try it, we'll fund it. They see like 10 others, like, we'll try these 2, fund them, and see like one of them will hit, the others might not. But if they can, if they can,
I know Alter Carbon didn't hit, or the second season of it didn't hit very well. And
yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of. Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of other things on Netflix that we just aren't thinking of because we don't like follow all the small things coming out that don't blow up.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about like failures in terms of viewership, I think a lot of things from Disney Plus can be added into that. Pretty much anything that came out that was Marvel had tons of complaints that were coming in, and I hate to be the guy here, but I don't think anybody at Disney was listening to any of that constructive criticism, because they were making the exact same mistakes in a later series when we know that was being filmed later, and you could have implemented that stuff. So like, maybe you couldn't have put it in for WandaVision, but you could have put it in for Hawkeye, kind of thing.
Yeah, and if that is something that is turning people off of their big series, then yeah, that's a mistake on Disney's part.
Yeah. And that's something they can definitely learn from. But they're the big ones that I can think of that had a lot of failures as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've seen a lot of the criticisms coming out about Book of Boba Fett, and they're not really listening to that. But I don't think Kathleen is really listening to any criticism of Star Wars at all at this point.
Yeah, and
because,
I know, like,
because if she was, she wouldn't be she wouldn't be doing things like trying to connect Book of Boba Fett and thus the original trilogy to the sequel trilogy when so many people didn't like it.
Yeah, so I feel like Disney Plus is also in like a different position too, because I don't think they have like as many shows as Netflix, but they're like more concentrated. Like they put a lot of money behind like one show.
Yep.
Or like it's a big franchise. So Netflix is like throw everything against the wall, see what sticks. Disney's like make these things really good and then make money off of that. But in order for that to work, they have to be good enough to keep drawing in that audience.
Yeah, Disney's model is basically milk the cows for all they're worth and then eventually move on to something else.
Right.
Whereas I do agree with you. Netflix is basically throwing everything against the wall and hoping that it works out, and if it doesn't, then they work out another plan. But ultimately, they are losing a lot more money out of that than they are gaining. So that is definitely something they can't do in the long run. Well, I already know one big failure that's coming their way is the live-action Airbender. It's not going to do well.
Well, I don't know if they're losing money, though, because like Netflix has been profitable for the past 4 years.
They have been profitable, but there is technically some loss that has happened when it comes to things like the Dave Chappelle special. Did it have the viewership that it necessarily could have had? No, because of the controversy surrounding it.
Yeah, so it might be like they lost there, but overall they're still doing good. Though, interestingly, their profits are down. Like every quarter in 2011, their profits were down from the quarter before.
Yes.
So
it's and on top of, well, and the other thing that I also want to point out for Netflix is that they've got to, now that they don't have those nostalgic, they need to fill that void, because a lot of subscribers I know for a fact are leaving because they were the place to be able to go and watch old episodes of Cheers or old episodes of Friends, and now they're no longer that. And so and that's a lot of financial void that you can fill in either with original content or getting contracts somewhere else. I don't know how necessarily they fix it, but they need to fix it.
yeah, because if they do keep losing people, then they will turn unprofitable. So
I would actually say, like, one of the things that maybe they ought to look into is I've seen a huge demand on forums on like Reddit and things like that for old nostalgic cartoons that aren't necessarily on any other streaming platform, and a lot of that is because there are multiple owners involved. So like being able to bring something like Big Guy and Rusty back, or I know that a lot of people have been calling for BattleTech to finally be brought onto a streaming platform. Tiny Toons Adventures is another one that for some reason has never made it to HBO Max, and I don't understand why.
And they could do like the Retro Crush approach, buy up all these old stuff for not much money, but then still keep the cost of subscribers to like going through those.
Yeah.
That would let them turn a lot bigger profit.
That might be able to be the way that they maintain that, is that if they can get those exclusive contracts to those series, then they are able to at least somewhat fill that void. Because I know a lot of dedicated BattleTech fans that would buy, they'd hate doing it, but they would get Netflix in an instant to be able to do that. I think another thing that does have to be, I'm going to hammer this again. Do not put ads into your tiered stuff. At the very least, what you want to do is have the ads be that minimum revenue that you can get. And I actually think that this would work for them, because I'm going to ask you both honestly, because you guys are anime reviewers. How many, have you ever had times where you're just like, screw it, I can deal with the commercials, but I got to pay for this given month. I will downgrade to the ad package for Crunchyroll? Because I've done that a few times. Because I can easily walk off and go do something else when commercials are on.
Or just use ad blocker.
That too. Well, see, you stream a lot on PC. I stream on TV. So at that point, I don't have an ad blocker. But
yeah, I've done that before. Like, I forget what show I was watching. It was like, it's not worth subbing to Crunchyroll. I'll deal with ads, grab a snack or whatever when they play.
Exactly. Like, this is what I was doing as a kid when Saturday morning cartoons were happening. Is that the commercials time is when you go get another bowl of cereal. And there are a lot of kids out there that just don't get that. Like, go and make a sandwich. It's okay. You'll miss like 2 minutes.
Now I want cereal.
Yes. Well, cereal's great. So at that point, it's gonna be even better. Alex, have you ever had to drop Crunchyroll at any given moment?
Well, no, I've actually kept my subscription. I started off watching Crunchyroll on the free service with the ads, but then I just decided I'm sick of the ads. I'm just gonna that was when I said, screw it. I'm just gonna finally start paying for the service. So I've kept my subscriptions going. I don't know how long, considering with Funimation now having Crunchyroll, now owning it. A lot of the shows are on both platforms, so I'm just like wondering, do I really need to keep both? I don't know. I haven't decided anything just yet. So
but at that point, you also have that security blanket that you can look into. Is like, okay, well, if times get hard, I can go back to the free service, and I don't lose access to anime. I could still go watch stuff. I have to deal with ads.
Yeah,
like that's not necessarily. This is why I'm thinking. Netflix ought to consider this. Prime Video ought to consider this. Hulu does. Paramount Plus ought to consider this, because then at that point, wouldn't it be great to just don't do the 7-day membership thing, because
Yeah,
everybody
the
uses
free
that
trial
up. It's like a
membership.
gym membership. It means nothing. But if you open
Yeah.
up your platform to being free, but with ads, you open it up
Right.
to everybody.
I mean, even think of something like Amazon, right? Like, what if you could just buy like Amazon streaming, right,
Mhm.
on its own, right? But if you're like a Prime members get it free because that's what their Prime subscription. But like you could just go off and separately buy Prime streaming if that's all you wanted. You didn't care about
Yeah.
Prime shipping or anything like that, or other Prime perks.
Or even better. Okay, some people might consider this to be a selfish thing to do, but I actually think it would be a good business strategy. You want to watch our original content? You have to buy the upper tier.
And like have the stuff like you can get everywhere or like the old stuff for free.
And I think that works because, so Alex shares my Disney Plus account as well as his dad. And his dad only ever watches old movies that Disney has the rights to from like the 50s and 60s. Because that's what he grew up with. So at that point, a basic package that only required that is all he's ever going to get. He doesn't care about The Mandalorian. He doesn't care about WandaVision. So at that point, why pay for it? And then at that point, you can that's how you bring people in. And maybe that gets you a little bit more financial security.
And something you can do, like I know what Crunchyroll does, is like they have 3 tiers. The first tier you can only watch on one screen at a time. The other you can do 4.
Yeah.
So if you're going to share an account, you'll do that one for $2 more a month to make sure you can all watch at the same time. So in a way,
Sorry, I'm paying attention, I promise, but I'm already getting crap for suggesting that. Stop giving the streaming services ideas. You're supposed to be on our side. Sorry.
where are you saying that?
So I'm actually getting that from a friend of mine. He's texting me going, "You bastard."
Oh, okay.
So
Tell your friend Rising says hi.
Rising says hi. I'll text it right now. But yeah, sorry. Go on.
Anyway, yeah, like with Crunchyroll, like if I'm going to share an account, I'll pick the mid-range tier. I'll pay them a couple more dollars a month to make sure that everyone I'm sharing with can get it. So they're not getting multiple subscriptions, but they are getting more money from one person or from multiple people sharing one account. So
Yeah.
in a way, that works out for them.
Because at this point, I don't know why streaming services haven't considered this tier hopping. Like even DirecTV, like for as much as I can give crap to them when I worked for them, they at least they encouraged tier hopping. Especially since they had an NFL Sunday ticket that they had to sell. So at that point, like the diehard football fans are going to buy that, but then in the off season, they tier hop to something else. And I don't know, this has never made sense to me why tier hopping hasn't been suggested as a means to be able to gain financial security in these cases. Like Netflix especially has been stringent about like, no, we want you committed to this one thing. Well, yeah, okay, I get that. But you want to know one thing that killed the WWE Network? Is that Vince went from doing this tier hopping system in pay-per-view to immediately offering everything for $10 a month. I don't know how I can advertise this enough, guys. WWE Network is a perfect example of what not to do as a streaming platform. Because they did everything in their power to make themselves lose money.
Yes, they basically cut all their pay-per-view income then.
And by a lot, might I add. Because there's no way that $10 a month was going to cover what they lost. I mean, just to give people an example here. So WrestleMania, their biggest pay-per-view, their biggest event for the entire year, a 5-hour, and now, in this case, 6-hour, because it's 2 days, a 6-hour pay-per-view was like a premium package. I think the most that I ever heard people were spending on that was $150. That's just for WrestleMania.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then at that point, they want you, if you're a diehard fan, you want to see the WWE Hall of Fame. Okay, well, that's an extra $50 to be able to go and watch that event. Or if you want to be able to watch all of the pre-show content and everything like that, that's extra money that you can get in this big-ass bundle because hardcore wrestling fans are going to buy that. and they lost. So they went from 150 Rising Sun to $10 a month. You get WrestleMania for $10 a month.
Why would we only pay that much for it?
Well, even the talent looked at Vince and went, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because at least when you were doing like $150, like we were all looking at a very big payday, and now we're looking at chump change. It's kind of not worth it for us to do this big 6-hour pay-per-view anymore. And guess what? WWE Network fell apart and ultimately went to Peacock. And now Peacock sold them off to Disney.
Which still seems strange to me.
Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, they're going to get edited. They're going to get edited into the dirt. A lot of people had problems with what Peacock was doing. Oh, just wait for Disney, my friends. Wait for Disney. Because 80% of the Attitude Era is going to be locked out. You're not going to be able to see any of your favorite Stone Cold Steve Austin moments. They will not exist. D-Generation X? Ha! F that. You will not be able to get those events either. So, yeah, that's great job there, Vince. You did a great job running that service into the ground. And the worst part about that is he had an amazing idea. And he just ran it into the ground. He should have relied a lot on pay-per-view as well. But,
yeah, like you do the WrestleMania channel, but still have a few pay-per-view things.
Yeah, that's what he should have done. And even in later interviews, not Vince, but his son Shane has admitted that that's something that's come up in conversations between the two of them.
Yeah, or it could be like you get a discount on pay-per-view if you have the channel.
Yeah, and I don't know why Vince wasn't listening to that advice, but he wasn't. And I know that a lot of people get mad at me for bringing up wrestling, but in this case, it is a perfect example of what not to do as a streaming service. Because they had a great premise. Like this is a nostalgia machine for wrestling fans that now you can re-experience the Attitude Era with your kids. And they let that slip through their fingers. And for what? Well, part of that was the failed re-execution of the XFL that didn't happen. Which, by the way, The Rock still owns.
Wrestling is weird.
Wrestling is weird. But you just think if ESPN did that with legacy basketball content. How many sports fans would be buying into that right now? It would be ridiculous. And so at that point, you had a really great idea. And in essence, Disney Plus does this. And that's why I'm saying, you should encourage tier hopping because some people just want to go watch the X-Men cartoon. They don't want to pay for anything extra. They just want to go watch the 90s X-Men cartoon.
Yeah, it's have a really cheap tier that people, they'll pay $5 a month for it, and now you get them in.
Exactly. Or even like I was saying, free with ads. Okay, you have to deal with commercials. Oh, but by the way, we're going to advertise the hell out of, and I'm still not happy about this, they're resurrecting the 90s X-Men cartoon. So at that point, you're watching X-Men, and now you're getting advertised. Oh, they're going to do new seasons. Oh, they're going to do new seasons of this thing? Oh, but it's exclusive content, so you need to go up to this tier. Well, an X-Men fan's going to totally do it, right, Alex?
Yeah, totally.
Well, you're not, but...
I know. That's why I'm being sarcastic.
Yes, we can all tell, but I know some diehard X-Men fans that would do it. Just because they want to see that they want to see where that season goes. But that's just me. So I think this has actually been an awesome discussion to be able to figure out what streaming platforms are doing wrong right now, as well as what they need to do to be able to fix it. Is there anything else that you guys want to add to this before we start wrapping things up?
Thought did occur to me, and this would probably be great for something like Disney Plus, as I know with Crunchyroll, they also have a tiered subscription model, and I know some of their higher premium tiers,
yeah, they actually their higher tiers allow for, I think not exclusive series, but I can't remember how it works. There are specific anime that you can't access certain episodes unless you're a premium subscriber.
that's like the weekly simulcasts. What I'm thinking
Okay.
of is more like with Crunchyroll, they have their own store. They have the Crunchy store, right?
Yes.
And they have merchandise. So I'm thinking this would be great, something Disney could do with like if they wanted to do a tier model, like I don't know, for a few extra bucks a month, you get access to the Disney store. There are Disney stores, so discounts on either free shipping, discounts on shipping, exclusive merchandise, raffles for merchandise. I don't know how that works. That's a legal thing, but I
Yeah.
think Disney Plus, considering Disney is such a merchandise heavy company, this could work so well for Disney Plus.
I don't like the fact that we're giving Disney Plus this example. The only thing I have a problem with is that I don't have a problem with, but I would question it, is they have that exclusive deal with Target. So they have
Fair
that
enough,
deal
yeah.
where they basically create a mini Disney store in Targets.
Oh, okay.
So
Probably
that would be the one interference. But that out of the question, you're not wrong.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be a great thing to be able to work out a distribution deal with, say, like Amazon, to be able to start selling your old school movie DVDs that way, instead of having to rely on like third party sellers like Amazon has to do with a lot of those old movies.
Oh yeah, it's like Amazon started selling them directly.
So I mean, yeah, you could do that. I actually think it would be a much better thing to go the cheap route, which would be like T-shirts and stuff like that. That would be a better way,
But yeah, like just
because
any
everybody
kind
will
of
buy a T-shirt.
merchandise. Yeah, any kind of merchandise from Disney, right?
Yeah.
Be it the Walt Disney brand, be it any of the other properties they own, right? I think they could do very well with that.
Oh, I forgot about that feature. Downloading for offline viewing. That
Oh
Crunchyroll also
yeah,
offers.
Oh yeah, that too.
So you have that also as an advantage of the premium subscription, and it's a good one. I'm not knocking that in any sense. I think a lot of platforms ought to consider that.
yeah. And that's like I travel for work on a regular basis. So if I'm flying somewhere, well, I'll just download a few episodes on my phone ahead of time, watch them in the air.
Oh, maybe I got this wrong, because Pretty Usagi in the chat is actually saying that Crunchyroll didn't offer that, but Verve did, and so they went with Verve.
Okay, I thought Crunchyroll did because I'm pretty sure that they offer it now. Maybe in the past they didn't.
I think Funimation does, but I'm not totally sure either.
But I do know that YouTube does that. YouTube does offer like you to be able to download videos and watch it at your own leisure.
Yes, their second tier for Crunchyroll does have offline viewing.
Yes.
That's a somewhat
Oh, okay.
recent one.
So that definitely would be something that could be considered with a lot of that, and it would make sense for that to happen. So I agree with that. Yeah. Anything else that we want to add with this?
So I know we talked about this a couple times, but at least for like anime, for piracy being a really big thing for people to watch shows, and I feel like in order
I don't think
for
it's just an
streaming-
anime thing anymore. I think streaming platforms as a whole need to be worried about that, because because here's the thing, a lot of creators, and I'm not even going to point fingers at a lot of people. There's a lot of people encouraging piracy because Disney's failing and they're not listening to their fan bases. And so at that point, they work out the deals, with their friends so that one person is paying for it, but everybody gets to watch. I think that's definitely something that has to be considered, because if you're going to put something out that they know they're not going to like, they'll pirate it just to be able to see it.
Well, there are also times where like you get a better quality from pirating. Like one of my favorite anime is the show Symphogear. It's about magical girls and explosions and music.
I love the fact that you added explosions in there, but okay.
Yeah, but like a lot of the characters like singing songs.
That instantly makes me think it was directed by Michael Bay, and so now I need to see Symphogear directed by Michael Bay.
I feel like it was directed by him.
Okay.
But yeah, like a lot of the characters like sing songs like in this lyrics of the songs will like convey their feelings, and there's a lot of power to them. But a lot of the official subtitles did not have subtitles for the music at the time, while the pirate sites did. So I get a better experience pirating that show than I would watching it legally. Now they have
Yeah.
gotten better about that, but again, that was like a very clear example. It's like I am paying for an inferior product.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, another thing that I would want to add with that, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of high quality translators of Japanese to American, I always want to say American, but English, won't work for places like Crunchyroll because they're not going to get paid nearly enough to do their job.
Yeah, that is a problem in the whole industry, not just Crunchyroll. I think it's
And,
I
all
could see
across
that.
the
and that is a
industry.
dumb thing in my opinion. Like if you're going to pay a staff to go work on original content and you're not paying your translators properly to be able to do what is the bread and butter of your market, you're doing it wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I've seen complaints like the Crunchyroll subtitles they get stuff wrong, but
Yeah.
then if you look at the fan sub, they do it better. So again, I don't know like how common that is, but then in those cases, you're paying for the inferior product.
Yeah, that makes about as much sense to me as when Blizzard announced Diablo Immortal. You know, their cornerstone audience has been PC for many years, and all of a sudden they say, "Oh, mobile market. Guess if you don't have a phone, you're screwed." And it's like, okay, so what you're basically saying is you're going to ignore the cornerstone, the foundation of your market share. You're going to ignore them and rely on a market you have not advertised to up until that point. And that's what I think about Crunchyroll is like you do everything in your power to support that foundation and then you experiment with original content.
Yeah, and I think the timing of that just did not work. But yeah, so the thing with piracy is like if you're going to ask me to pay for something, you should deliver a better product than I can get for free.
Yeah. No, I agree entirely. They really ought to consider that. Because in some cases you are correct. Pirate sites are giving better quality, better translation, and not for a dime. And
Yeah,
so,
in a way, like the pirate sites are cheating because they're not paying for the content.
well,
But
and
still,
because of that, that's why a lot of creators in Japan still have a bad viewpoint of Americans. Because of that. Well, it's an easy enough fix, but nobody wants to fix it.
yeah, it's like if I want to go watch anime on my TV, like my laptop's plugged into it, what's works better? Be trying to fight through an app and not sure like if I'll get it there, or going to my favorite pirate site, click or type in the anime I want to watch, wait 5 minutes, download it, now I have it.
Yeah. Another example that actually the same friend brought up. So your streaming service is top tier and it works great, but how have you not updated your website in many years? And that's actually true of Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll has like the slightest bit of an error and that entire website is shut down. And at that point, that shuts down potential streaming on PC for a lot of people. And I would also say, again, pay for the translators and pay for the proper infrastructure to have that website working like Netflix. You don't even start things like High Guardian Spice until that stuff is in place. Because if you're not doing that, then this is another complaint I also have with Funimation's side as well, is that website is craptastic for me whenever I want to watch on PC.
Yeah, Funimation's been pretty bad. Yeah, it's like whenever I was like last year, like when the new Attack on Titans episode came out, that brought down like Crunchyroll and Funimation because so many people were trying to watch it. Well, for me, it's like, okay, I'll just download it from this torrent that will get it to me in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And when piracy can do it better, you've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, I can already tell you, like, the biggest problem there is they're not willing enough to adequately pay any of these people, because in some cases, I mean, you guys know anime, like, inside and out. I know games. And the example that I can give here is look how much the EA CEO earns and then go right to the person below him and see how much he earns. And then tell me the difference between the two and how much of that could go to hiring new people and being able to put out new IPs and being like, the same thing could be said of like, how much does the Crunchyroll CEO make and how much of that could be devoted towards improving the site, improving the streaming, making sure nobody has any issues in simulcasts.
And if they do invest in that, they get more people to subscribe. Then they
Yeah.
put more money to pay their CEO and everyone else.
There's a reason that I can't speak for this current generation, but there's a reason Netflix, when you had an Xbox and you had a PlayStation 3, when you had the Netflix app on that, there was so much trust in that because it worked. And they made sure that it fucking worked. And at that point, that's all that needed to happen. And I believe they basically used that time to be able to build up the infrastructure of that of that system, as well as the streaming platform on the website, which was technically backward of what they'd put into the consoles. So that's Netflix doing the right thing in that regard, and I'll give them that credit. That is not something that I think Crunchyroll has been doing and should be doing. Not worrying about original content just yet. So, okay. So, I mean, there's so much more that we could go into with piracy that I think easily could go for hours. How about make crap available? One of the things that actually irritates the hell out of me is, so I, in 2020, for the first time watched Initial D. And that was a great anime to be able to go watch. Do you want to know what sucks? I can't watch the last 2 seasons of it because they never came out to the States. It was never dubbed. And there's no Japanese service that would allow for you to be able to watch those. No, I've double checked. Crunchyroll doesn't have them. And if they have them now, then good for them. But yeah, I want to be able to watch those last 2 seasons. How do I get to watch them? I have to pirate them.
Yeah,
and you can't complain in that case that, we hate pirates, but you didn't make it available.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have a website that did license it, but then the license expired, like my favorite anime, Twin Tails.
Yeah, you can't criticize Kiss Anime in that regard. I'm trying to think of like a pirating site or BitTorrent. You can't criticize at that point because you've done nothing to make it available. Even when you know that there's a straight up demand for it. Another perfect example here is, I don't know for how many years people have been wanting Freakazoid to be able to be put on, because at one point it was on DVD, but then no streaming service would pick it up. So what happened? BitTorrent put the episodes out there, and immediately some of the animators were pissed off, but I would then argue Warner Brothers has done nothing in their power to be able to keep Freakazoid up so that people can go watch it there. So at that point, can you blame the pirates? I would argue you can't.
Yeah, like you don't give them another option if they want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even the fault of the companies necessarily, just because something gets tied up in legal limbo for whatever reason, right? Like an estate's holding up the rights, or the rights are like split among like 6 different people, and it's like.
And what's funny about that, Alex? I don't know if you've seen this, but I saw an article, I want to say like a week or 2 back, where it was basically, if you actually went and looked into some of these rights holders for some of these properties, if you actually look at them contractually and legally, it's been public domain for years on some of these ends. So the reluctant parties, the ones that are screaming left and right, oh, you can't do this, they technically don't own it anymore. And they never renewed it, and they never did anything to renew their stake in it. And so at that point, you could have done it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you decided not to pay anybody to look into that.
Yeah.
And you had, so like, for example, Tiny Toons Adventures, you have a ton of people demanding to be able to see that on a streaming platform, and you didn't do any kind of legwork to be able to get that done. That is what you could hire the one dude's uncle's nephew to go do. Because you're already having him going and getting your coffee. Just go have him go look into it. I mean, how many searches does it take?
You'd be surprised how hard it is to dig through all that legal tape from years ago.
You're right, but my counter argument is simply this. How long did it take after Daniela Pineda made an ass of herself because she irritated the wrong people on Twitter who are going to obsess over that, and immediately we find out about the offending footage that actually did irritate Daniela Pineda. Like, there are people that we can hire to do this. All I'm saying is pay them.
Just hire the whole internet or a whole Twitter.
I don't want to say it the way that other YouTubers have, but hire the internet autists because they can do it. I've literally, like, these people dig through 20 years back to the founding of Twitter to find things where people have been an asshole.
Okay, just like post something on Twitter saying, if you can figure out the legal complications of this, we'll post it online for free.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard. So at that point, I'm just saying, don't hire the coffee people to maybe go and do the legwork for that. So your top people are still being used where they need to be used, but then go hire the people as soon as you know what happens there. Go pursue it, because you're leaving money on the table, as far as I'm concerned. And as long as it's not going to take more to get it than what you could have gained, then it's worth it. If it is more than that, then it's not worth it. But even then, I would say be honest with the fans.
And maybe some rights holder says, "Oh, I'll only give this to you for like $5 million." Like, okay, that's not worth it.
Yeah. That's the same thing as, like, if you want to be able to have that specific website, but somebody's been holding it, and so they're like $25,000 for it. Then I can understand why you go with a different website name, because you can't afford it at that point, and there's no way that you're going to get that person to back down. So at that point, that's when a change needs to happen. So, well, with that being said, we are actually coming up on 2 hours, and again, we could easily bring up pirating as its own subject, and I would. You know what, Rising Sun? I'd bring you on for that, because you probably know more about the pirating sphere than even I do. So,
yeah, I've done like 2 videos like arguing, not necessarily why piracy is good, but at least like why it makes sense to do it.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I'll go find the links to those, and I'll put them in the show feed as well, so they can look those up and get your knowledge of it. But easily, if you guys want to be able to have that Geek News Roundtable, let me know in the comment section, and I will make it happen. Whether or not we get Alex for it, I don't know. Probably we'll get Alex for it, because I think he would want to get in there as an anime fan.
Yeah.
So at that point, let's go ahead and wrap things up. If people want to be able to reach out to us on the opinions that we've expressed tonight, or if they want to check out our content or be able to communicate with us directly, our special guest, Rising Sun Reviews, how do they do that for you?
Let's see, they can find me on my YouTube or Twitch or Twitter or OnlyFans. I don't really do much with that anymore.
I still love the fact that you have an OnlyFans.
You do? Really?
Yes, a political OnlyFans.
Yes. Do you wish for me to analyze Joe Biden's tax plan when he was elected?
Then you have to go to his OnlyFans. That,
Okay.
You know what? That's actually more worthwhile than a chick with boobs, showing her boobs on OnlyFans, in my opinion.
Okay, I have a friend I need to tell that you said that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. All right. And Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do people get a hold of you?
And Shadow Blizzard 3000, that's my channel. I do anime content on it, some game content on the side. And yeah, so follow me there.
All right. And if people want to be able to follow me and reach out to me, you can go to Twitter at GeekyNRO. I've basically procured that account for the podcast as well as for my inane stuff. So you guys can reach out to me there, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you there, as well as Instagram at Dirac2326 if you guys want to see random pictures of my kids, as well as geeky fart memes that I might find. I especially put one up, I want to say Tuesday, about God of War farts. Yeah, go check that out. It was great. Just a weird deal that I just came across on Twitter that I wanted to share. But if you guys want to be able to subscribe to the podcast or follow the podcast, if you like what you've heard, then the first thing that we would ask is you go support the RSS feed, which is geekynro.libsyn.com. That will give you links to your favorite podcasting platforms, because we're pretty much on all of them. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, aka Audible. We're also on Spotify and Player.fm, and looking into even more of that. So if we're not on your favorite platform, just wait a little bit, and we probably will be. So you guys can support us there. Also, you can be able to support us by And also, I should point out the exclusive content that you do get on that as well, because not only do we have this podcast, but we have things like Geek News Anime Night, where we're currently covering Fruits Basket Season 3. And if you guys haven't heard it just yet, because I think it debuted on Thursday, you should hear my personal opinions on how fucked up the Soma family actually is. So you guys can enjoy that. Also, you can check out Geek News Marathon Night, where we're currently covering Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1, which has strangely been very popular, probably because of Season 2 on the horizon. So you get all of that content over there and not necessarily on YouTube. So keep that in mind. You can also check out my YouTube content and see all the live streams that we do. I stream with Alex. I stream with my wife, Andrea. I think at some point we will get back to doing Draken Shadow live. I'm just not sure when. Maybe when my house stops being the houses of healing from the Lord of the Rings. That might be the time to start, right, Alex?
So probably not till your daughters are at least out of school. For
That's why I'm saying the houses of healing in the Lord of the Rings. As soon as I kick Anya out of our house, then we'll totally be good. So those are the ways to be able to support the podcast. And also, if you guys have any suggestions for stories, as well as for any feedback that you would like to leave on the podcast, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that'll do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Geek News Roundtable. If you have any discussion topics, feel free to leave them in the comments below on stuff that you guys would like to see us talk about. Feel free to be able to do so in the comments. And for myself, for Alex, and for Rising Sun, which, by the way, congratulations on your first ever podcast, man. That's great for you. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Okay.